Welcome to the Private Practice Startup, where we inspire you from startup to mastery. We chat with entrepreneurs, experts in the mental health and business arenas, and successful private practitioners to give you the tools needed to make your dream practice a reality. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, and so much more. Here are your hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
Hey, Startup Nation. Welcome back to another episode. I am Katie Lemieux here with my co-host, business partner, and friend.
What's up, Startup Nation? Dr. Kate Campbell here.
We had a really great time on our last show, which was talking about podcasting. We actually had 2 episodes on podcasting, one with Melvin Varghese from Selling the Couch and our very own Tim Holloway, who is actually our podcast editor. So we had 2 back-to-back awesome episodes about podcasting. And today, this is really exciting, we have Brad Pliner, CEO, president, and founder of TherapyNotes, and he is going to be talking to us today about the 5 benefits of using cloud-based electronic medical record software for practices. So I'm going to say EMR from now because I think I'm going to get tongue-tied on that little acronym there. So, hey, Brad, welcome.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
We are really excited to have you because we haven't had yet a podcast talking about electronic medical record. I am tripping up on that. EMRs or EHRs, electronic health record. Depends on where you're from, what you say. Tomato, tomato, I guess. So this is really going to be an awesome episode. But before we get started, we wanted to say welcome to anyone new. You are officially part of Startup Nation. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you're a longtime listener, we really appreciate you. And we hope that you have found a nice little home in our Facebook group at the Private Practice Startup. Just ask to be approved and we will see you there. And it's really cool because you can interact with Kate and I directly, and not only us, because really what helps create a great business is community. So we have a large community in there growing every day. So we hope that you join us. But if you are new, we have a special gift for you, and that is our A to Z cheat sheet. Essentials for building and growing a private practice. If you go over to our resources tab at theprivatepracticestartup.com, just look for the A to Z cheat sheet, download it, and there you go. So Brad.
Yes, Brad, tell us what led you into the business you're in now with TherapyNotes.
Sure. So I graduated with my master's in computer science, and then I started and grew a successful web development business. And then much later, I got married, and my wife had a growing psychology practice. She recognized the need for software to help her do her notes. We couldn't find anything. We couldn't find anything. So we built something for her, which eventually evolved into TherapyNotes. And then TherapyNotes launched in 2010, and it immediately took off. And we're now the market leader for EMRs for psychologists and therapists. We're about to move into new office space again because our team keeps growing too quickly for our office space. So things are going very well here.
That's amazing. Congratulations on your success. And that's really cool. And I know that before we got started on the podcast, I was sharing with you that, I spent 11 and a half years in community mental health, and I got to be involved in a year-long creation and integration of our electronic medical record system there, looking at all the different workflows and the systems and how things go together. And, it seems honestly often seamless to the user, but it really takes a lot of work to create and build that. So, kudos to you guys and all your success and growth. And I think David Esposito, who we've been in contact with, as well as Brad, I think he shared that you guys have 25,000 clients. Is that correct?
More or less, yeah. We're growing very quick every day. Ridiculous number of practices sign up every day to try out TherapyNotes. So we're constantly growing. So every time I tell someone what the number is, I'm wrong because it's already gone way past that one. So yes, a lot of practices, a lot of clients. And if you multiply out the number of patients we've therefore had some impact on, is pretty phenomenal.
That's incredible. That is incredible. And later on, we're going to tell you guys about a special discount. So if you are looking for an EMR, obviously you can't have 25,000 plus clients and not be doing something right. So we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the podcast. But
in the meantime, let's talk about what's the best advice that you've ever received that relates to being an entrepreneur or building a business?
Sure. Well, when I was graduating Drexel, I told my professor that I was thinking of starting a business. He suggested I didn't. He said I should get a job, get experience, and then start a company. And I did not listen to him. And that was the best, decision I made, was not to follow that advice. So what I learned from that, though, is that, and what I've learned over the years is an entrepreneur is constantly being given advice and being challenged, whether it's by employees or family, whoever may be. So it's up to an entrepreneur to be receptive to that advice, digest it, but then have the conviction to make their own decisions. So, and it also helps to be authentic.
We got
You said the authentic word.
We got to ring our
All
bell.
right, I admit I did that for you, but yep. But it's true. It's true. You have to be true to yourself. And as an entrepreneur, it's important that you're going to be getting a lot of advice, and it's important for you to take that advice and figure out what works for you. Because as an entrepreneur, the definition of an entrepreneur is you're not just getting a job, you're doing something new that hasn't been done before. So there aren't a lot of outside resources that are going to tell you exactly how to do that. And it's great to get advice, but again, you have to do what's best for you and make your own decisions.
Yeah, that's really great advice because there's a lot of naysayers out there. And you're right. Entrepreneurship is uncharted waters. It's new territory, and it takes a lot of courage to step out into that and to really learn what you need to learn to be successful in that. But there are some people who have had negative experiences with that. I can remember many stories of hearing of failures, and also people who are in graduate school with their professors saying, you can't make money in the therapy field. You're not going into this to make money. And so there's a lot of people in positions of power in the educational world that may not give the best advice. So definitely, don't trust everything that you hear.
And when you say entrepreneurship, I definitely think it's a mindset and an attitude. And as Brad, you were sharing your story and talking to your professor, I immediately thought of the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad about Robert Kiyosaki, is that his biological father was a professor, and then who he calls his rich dad, that was his best friend, Mike's dad. And so, of course, if you're going to go to the professor, the advice you're probably going to get is, oh no, maybe get a job or be a professor or something like that. And so we have to also be careful of, where we get that advice from, and know that, if it's not the advice we want to hear, we're going to do it anyways, which is awesome.
Yes, absolutely. And being an entrepreneur isn't necessarily for everybody. So just because you think if you start a company, that's your best way to make money, statistically, it's not. The best way to make money is not to go out and start a company. If you do well at it, sure, you have unlimited potential, but that is statistically not where you're going to make the most money. You do it as an entrepreneur because it's in your blood and you have to do it. You can't listen to the status quo, and you need to set your own course. And if that's for you, it's definitely an exciting way to start your profession or run your profession.
It's a wild ride.
It's a wild ride, exactly.
It is. I know we have tons of listeners who are just dying to get into your topic, which is the 5 benefits of using cloud-based EMR software for private practices. Brad, tell us, what is tip number 1?
Sure. So number 1 is time management. So the reason we built TherapyNotes, like I said, it was my wife needed a way to do her notes faster. She's doing the same template approach every time she's seeing her patients. And she recognized that there should be a software solution to do this. But in addition to that, a good EMR should also have integrated practice management features that would include helping you with your business operations, your scheduling, and your billing. And the whole workflow of a clinician should be accounted for. So when you do your note, that information should automatically go over to the billing. The billing should automatically go forward to, being able to create a claim or charge a credit card and so forth. So clinicians will save a lot of time, and your administrative staff will save a lot of time with a good EMR.
It's interesting. I just had this conversation. I have a new coachee, and we were talking about setting fees and handling money. And so, there's this really interesting interaction that occurs between a therapist and their client when it comes to money, right? So most therapists usually take money at the end. And so after this big kind of drawn out session and expression of feelings and emotions, sometimes therapists feel really uncomfortable then like taking money, right? It's kind of like, well, I feel bad, or, well, that was weird. Like I just listened to them cry and now I'm asking them to pay me. But with an EMR, that system's already set up for you. So all that stuff is done like in the background. And that was actually the exact conversation she and I had, is really having a system or even an EMR where there's a credit card on file where you don't even have to bother the client. It's just part of the system. It's taken right out of that space.
Yeah, you just jumped ahead to number 4, which is about cash flow. So yes.
All right, I'll slow down.
No, but I'm glad you're seeing there's a lot of value to having an EMR, and you're right, they all overlap too. The billing side of things affects the clinical side of things because these ultimately you're seeing patients and helping them, and so we'll certainly talk more about that.
And we all know as therapists, the amount of paperwork and the time it takes to write your notes each time after session and not have this optimized system for that. I mean, it really does. It's a huge time and energy suck, and time is money. If you could be focusing on other areas that you really love, like seeing your clients, making a difference in the world, maybe marketing or other types of, other facets of your practice, by delegating this and outsourcing this to a company who has streamlined everything, I mean, that's just tremendous.
So tell us.
That's exactly right.
Sorry, Brad. So tell us number 2.
Okay, so the second benefit of an EMR is security. So it's the one area where people think if they switch to an EMR, then they suddenly have to worry about security. They already have to worry about security. So if you have notes on paper, a crowbar is all someone needs to get into your records. Where within a good EMR, you have no medical records in your office at all. You scan and you upload any papers, or they're digital from day one. Number 2, within security, you also can have digital offsite backups. If you have notes on paper, a fire means you have no records anymore. I doubt anyone's photocopying their notes and taking them to a second location. They should, but I'm sure no one's doing that. You also have the ability to set access controls. So this, which is really important once you have more than one person working in your practice. You don't want people to have access to things they shouldn't have access to. And with a computer, it's easy to do that. So you can have it, for example, your billers can see the diagnosis code to do the claim, but can't see the whole progress note. Or a scheduler can create your appointments, but can't see, your notes or whatever it may be. Or your schedulers can't see your billing can't see your schedule. And also for HIPAA, if you're submitting claims and concerned about HIPAA, you have no choice but to use an EMR. And one example is an EMR has activity locks. A good EMR anyway, where every time someone views a note, edits a note, makes an appointment, any interaction is logged. That is a requirement for HIPAA, and it is a feature of TherapyNotes, for example. So that's really important. And of course, with security, you can't just have an EMR and say, "Okay, great, I'm secure." You still have requirements. You still need a secure computer and secure password, but you also need to choose an EMR that takes security very seriously.
For sure, that's essential. And as you're talking about, like, if you have a paper chart and you have a fire, so I have a little bit of a gross story in regards to that. Do you guys want to hear that?
Uh-oh. I don't know. I'm a little afraid here.
Many years ago, when I was a case manager, we were getting ready for an audit, and my supervisor was pulling the charts to get ready for the audit, and she placed them on the floor of her office, locked the office. Well, I guess that night the toilet had overflowed, and guess whose client chart was on the bottom of that pile? Yes. So never mind security, like security for your own sanity and health reasons.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, HIPAA does speak to backups as well. It's not just about security and who has access to it, but it does actually speak directly to backups. And with an electronic system, it's very easy to back up everything. And it's not like you back up once every 24 hours. We're backing up literally every time you do anything. It's saved in multiple places and being backed up. So there's layers of backup. So you shouldn't have to worry about backup at all.
Unless the toilet backs up.
I was just going to say, no pun intended.
That's so funny.
Yes,
so one question I have about security, Brad, is in regards to, here in the state of Florida, which I assume many states are similar, is that, we have to hold on to our charts for 7 years. So at the end of the time that a clinician needs to hold on to their chart, how do you guys, quote unquote, dispose of the chart and the information?
Sure. So that's the minimum time. It's not the maximum time. You can hold it indefinitely. Most people don't bother to purge old records unless there's a need to do so, because it doesn't take up any physical space. There's no harm in keeping these records because you may need them in the future. Now, of course, if there's a reason you don't want these records anymore, you just click a button to delete them and they're gone. So you don't have to shred things. You don't have to worry about it. And on our servers, we delete it. It eventually gets backed up. The fact that it's been deleted is also then backed up. So they're no longer in our backups either. So it's trivial to eliminate these records.
Gotcha. We have time management. Security is tip number 2. What's tip number 3?
All right. So number 3 is data management. So basically, this is sort of where everything kind of comes together. Everything is in the cloud or is on the servers. So, for example, you could start a note at work and then finish it at home without having to bring anything home with you. Because when you get home and log in, you have access to the note that you had started, as well as all the prior notes, any forms that they filled out and you've uploaded, anything that's in there is accessible. You could have an iPad on the beach with a cellular connection. You have access to everything. Also within data management, it's easier for you to provide those records to a third party or to the patient if needed, because it's all digital and accessible. You'll have higher quality documentation. Everything's more accurate. And you mentioned audit. Handwritten notes, if they can't read your writing, it's as if you didn't write anything. So with digital typed records, auditors love them. I have people tell us all the time it's the first time they passed an audit without a problem because they switched to TherapyNotes. And that was just during their trial, their first 3 months of TherapyNotes.
That's
so
great.
yeah, so you mentioned audit and the same thing, floods, whatever. It's all digital. It's all secure. So your ability to manipulate these records digitally is much easier and efficient than having to deal with paper records.
And when I think of data management, I also think of time management. Like imagine if you're an equine therapist and really your office is the barn or, the stable. And so you don't have to wait until you get home to sit down to put the kids to bed to then sit down to do your notes. You can actually create the opportunity to do them at the barn, at the stable, wherever that happens. So you can even get more proficient with your own time based off at having an EMR.
That's exactly right. We have clinicians that see patients at their homes. They bring an iPad or a small laptop. As long as you have an internet connection, that's everything you need. You can connect, you can start your notes, finish your notes, access records that you may have needed while you're out on site. And as far as doing your notes at home, we've streamlined the note-taking process so much that we're hoping you can get your progress notes done in between your sessions, not queuing them up for the end of the day, but those 10 to 15 minutes you may have between your sessions, you can do a progress note usually in 2 to 3 minutes. Of course, it depends on the clinician.
That's awesome because there's nothing worse than waiting till the end of the day of a long day of seeing clients, and then you have to do like
5 to 10 notes,
however many notes. Yeah, there's nothing worse than that.
That might be the single most important factor that therapists are saying, please, yes, sign me up.
Yes, that is like the dreaded experience.
It's why my wife wanted a system, because she hates doing her notes at the end of the night. She just wants to come home and so actually that reminds me of a feature that's interesting. So as your appointments occur, we automatically put a line in your to-do list in TherapyNotes for every note you need to do. And it knows you need to do a progress note for this session, an intake note for that session. It'll even remind you that you haven't updated a treatment plan in by default 90 days. And there's settings related to that. So even if you can't get all your notes done throughout the day, you can't forget to do a note. So that's back to I know we already talked about time management, but that's part of time management. We manage your whole workflow. You can't forget to do something. We even remind you like, hey, that patient doesn't have a date of birth on file, or you never uploaded a service agreement from that patient. And a lot of these are customizable, but usually out of the box, most therapists will just see like TherapyNotes has already thought of everything that they just, they look at it and see, wow, it's telling me to do things that I need to do. It's like we're reading their mind. So workflow and time management, I know that was number one, but that's definitely a huge benefit of using TherapyNotes.
So it's not only an EMR, it's a psychic.
Yeah, exactly. It's a psychic, sure.
Awesome. That's great. And I always joke with therapists, so maybe this should be your tagline. So for therapists, you're 10 minutes in between clients. Not only can you grab a snack, go to the bathroom, but you can also do your notes.
That's exactly right. I like it.
Cool. So let's talk about that number 4, cash flow.
Okay, so number 4. So there's 2 reasons to be in private practice. You're helping patients, but you also need to make a living. So TherapyNotes or a good EMR will improve your cash flow in a number of ways. So a good EMR is also a practice management solution, like I said before. So ideally, by having them completely integrated, you can go right from your note to your billing. So let's start with there's billing reports. A good practice management solution will have billing reports that will show you what is due to you. What do your accounts receivable look like? What insurance companies owe you money? What patients owe you money? So money isn't falling through the cracks. So you're going to make sure that you're collecting every dollar that you're due. You will also get paid more quickly. Sending claims in TherapyNotes, like I said, as soon as the note's done, you can click the button to send the claim. Most people that do paper notes are filling out a form and sending it to their biller to do their billing probably once a month, and I've heard maybe every couple weeks. With TherapyNotes or a good practice management solution, you're going to send those claims the same day. You're going to get paid much, much faster. And that leads me into the next point, which is you will also find out about rejections much sooner. You don't want to see a patient 4 times that month to find out that their insurance is no longer valid, because then you're not getting paid for any of those sessions. Find out right away and then do something about it. So that's the insurance side of things. The other side is credit card processing. If we have integrated credit card processing, so that means your patients don't have to worry about bringing in their checkbook or having enough cash. They can't give you those excuses. Your patients have their credit card on them. If they don't, we also have a feature where you can put their credit card on file, which means you can charge them for no-shows. You can charge them for their sessions. Again, they can't have, even if they forgot their credit card, it's on file. So to your point that you said before, your patient comes in, sees you for service, you say goodbye, and they leave. Then you go in, you do your note, you click a button to charge their credit card. For their copay, you click another button to submit the claim. And you don't have to have that awkward interaction with them after, like you were just saying, if they're, walking out and they just, they're upset or whatever it may be, you don't have to deal with that. So it's just completely integrated. Again, you put your credit card and insurance card on file. That's a one-time thing. And then you just click a button to deal with it.
Yeah, that's great. And like we're kind of just led right into number 5 about improved patient service, right? And so what other ways does an EMR or your guys specifically improve patient service?
Yeah. So the whole reason TherapyNotes exists is to support behavioral health clinicians. You guys are the ones having a direct impact in improving your patients' well-being. So we take pride in our role in helping with that process. So a good practice management solution or EMR can help you in the following ways. One is it's easier for your patients to pay their bills, such as with the credit card feature. Your patients will also get reimbursed faster. Like I said, if you're using the insurance billing, even if they're out of network, if you're out of network and they're just getting a reimbursement check from the insurance company, they just get a check in the mail. Having them file their claims, giving them a super bill and having them file and do it for them. They get a check in the mail, and you're going to keep them as repeat customers or repeat clients, and they're going to be very happy. There's also online portal features such as the ability to request appointments and so forth. So online portals that's a major way that we're going to be growing over the next year or so. We have a lot of things planned for the portal. Also, that leads into appointment reminders. Your patients will love this feature. It will automatically text them or email them or call them or all of the above to remind them of their appointments. A lot of clinicians say they'd rather the patient take full responsibility and make sure they're there. I'd rather not. So when you're sitting there and your patient doesn't show up and now you have an hour that you could have been doing something more productive and you're just frustrated because your patient didn't show up, this pays for itself right away because one no-show that was avoided pays for your monthly subscription. I mean, it's
a no-brainer.
Yeah, and your patients love it. And of course, they need to come in for their service. That benefits them. If they forget their service, that obviously isn't helping them if they're not coming in for their therapy. And then another item would be that their medical records, if you need to provide them to the patient, they're accessible, they're more readily available. They can't just log in and get their records. I'm not trying to make that point. But if they ask you for them, you don't have to fuss about it. You can click the buttons, they can get printed, they'll put their page numbers, your practice logo at the top. Everything that they need or that you need to provide them is very easy to do so. And again, there's a lot more coming for the future. Our future growth for our business, a lot of it is the patient side of things. So we're going to have other areas where we're going to additionally be able to improve patient service.
Brad, that's really awesome. I really love these 5 tips. And, one of the quick things I was thinking before we wrap up today is that even if you have paper chart and you have a client that unbeknownst to you, previous or whatever, expresses suicidality and say you're somewhere and you need their address. If the paper chart's locked in your office, I don't know about that. You know what I'm saying? So when you talk about patient services, there's other ways to pull up their chart wherever you are to be able to support them the best that you can. So, there's just so many features and facets of this. And so, Brad, what would you say? I mean, you gave awesome tips and resources. Any other resources that you would share with our audience on this topic?
Sure. So I thought about the question a lot, and so, of course, the best resource on this topic is TherapyNotes itself. That's a little fulfilling. So, TherapyNotes is an EMR that you should try out. But to go to your question, instead of a self-help book or another podcast, what I would recommend a fellow entrepreneur is to go outside, take a walk, go to the park, go to the gym. I have found that self-help books, they're great, but I get wound up. I'm a higher energy person, and they just make me more high energy. I need to focus. So I find that if I separate myself from work and don't even think about how to run a business or these things, I get more perspective, and then I can come back and be even more productive and get more work done.
Perfect. We talked to actually Joe Sanak of Practice of the Practice about Slow Down School. And really, that's really important for any entrepreneur is to really step away because that's where we get the most creative. We're in that space of just solitude, meditation, whatever that is for us. So, one thing I want to say, Startup Nation, is that when we invite people on our podcast, and I don't know if you guys have noticed a theme, but most of the people that we invite, there is some connection to therapy or a therapist. A lot of, just like Brad, we talk with Perry of Brighter Vision, Justin Gaines, clients, they usually have either a mother-in-law, a wife, or someone that is connected to therapy. So we really pick and choose and hand select who we bring on the podcast because they have a story and they have a passion for our field. So I've been spending a lot of time with David. One of the employees over at TherapyNotes is really learning about their product. I've done a demo with them. So we really take a lot of time and really get to know and learn about not only the business, the people there, but the service. So one of the cool things is David walked me through the demo. It was great. It was very flowing. I really liked it. And so we actually have partnered with TherapyNotes to really support them and you guys. And their giveaway is for any one of Startup Nation. They are going to give you a free month. And then if you do sign up through our link, you're actually going to get 10% off for your first year. So that's awesome. And it's already, I mean, the cost is like nothing anyways. You know, you're going to save that aggravation time and everything else. So we are going to put that on the show notes page of this episode. And so that you will get that. And of course, you can connect with them, ask for a demo. And I'm sure that anyone there at TherapyNotes would be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on this call with us here today and providing such value for Startup Nation, Brad. I mean, this was just awesome. And clearly there's many, many, many benefits to working with you guys. And I'm sure Startup Nation can hear that. So we had a blast with you on today's podcast. And Startup Nation, you'll definitely want to tune in for next week's podcast. Make sure to check out our show notes page for all the tips, resources, giveaways, and links from today's show. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, and share with your friends and fellow colleagues. We hope you guys have an awesome, inspired day, and we look forward to continuing to inspire you from startup to mastery.
See you later, Startup Nation.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.